Welcome back, podcast friends. This is going to be a part one of two-part series on plants and how plants can actually make you burn more. And I feel like this is really important things. We've talked about a lot of the things that we need to be doing, like walking, drinking plenty of water, staying away from man-made food, eat mainly animal-based foods. We've talked about all these things, and one of them is sunlight. And sunlight is so important for us to get. And we are just like I've said before, we act like we're so smart because we're finding out all these things about the body. But the fact is, that's all we're doing is finding out what God's already done. He's created this human body that is absolutely amazing. And all scientists and doctors are doing is going through and trying to figure out how does this body work? How does this function? And one of the things that we're starting to find out more about because we hadn't learned about it is the sun and all the different things that sun does for our bodies. And there's so many things, from all the different ultraviolet rays and the infrared rays and the warmth. Sun does so many things for our body, and it helps us balance our hormones. It helps lift our mood. Just getting out and walking out in the sun, that can clear your head and it can improve your mood. It helps set your circadian rhythm, which is your body's automatic sleep and wake cycles, basically. And there's a lot of different circadian rhythms in your body, but the sun helps with that. So when you get the sunlight in your eyes early in the morning, that helps stimulate your cortisol so you can go through the day. But when it goes from daylight to night, that's going to stimulate your melatonin production so you can sleep better at night. And then we all know about the vitamin D. You need the sunlight on your skin for the vitamin D. And that's all very important. And that's why it's very important that you don't be afraid of the sun. The medical community's got everybody so afraid of the sun, thinking that, oh, everybody, if you're exposed to the sun at all, you're going to get all kinds of skin cancer and all this stuff. And that's not true. What causes the damage, one, is the amount of time you're in the sun, but a lot of it is from things that you eat also. And this is what I want to talk about today. But it's what you need to do is just gradually get sun. And I'll talk about this more in part two, but you want to gradually get sun. You don't want to burn, but you do want to be out in the sun. And that's why you don't want to put all these sunscreens on. And again, I'll talk about that in the next one. But we need the sun. Sun helps all animals, plants, everything in the world, everything on our world. Actually, it needs the sun. We all are connected this way. So now, as far as burning, a lot of people are burning a lot more now than they have ever burned before. And there's different reasons for that. But the burning, sometimes it has just as much to do with what we eat as it does with having us stay out in the sun, how long we're actually out in the sun. And a lot of these things are, like we've already talked about, with the seed oils, and these ultra processed grains. When you put these seed oils, they're polyunsaturated oils. And these polyunsaturated oils are extremely vulnerable to the sun and to cause what's called oxidative stress. It's when it produces these reactive oxygen species, which is like just an oxygen floating around, a free radical. And as these oxygen species go around and they bind to your cells in your body, it starts tearing those cells up. That's called oxidative stress. And that's what you don't want. And all these seed oils that's in all this man-made food and all these refined grains, that stuff actually causes oxidative stress in our body, and that can actually make our cells burn easier, or our skin burn easier also. And the reason why is because every single cell in our body that has a cell membrane, and it's made out of fat. You want those cell membranes to be made out of a saturated fat, because saturated fats, they don't oxidize. Okay. The polyunsaturated fats, they do. Those are ones that have double bonds. And if you don't understand what a double bond is, don't worry about it. But if you do, that's all a polyunsaturated fat means. It's in this fat, you have more than one double bond. And that makes it where it's unstable. And it makes it really fragile, especially when it gets hit by UV light, when you're talking about the cells of your skin. And when that does, that causes inflammation. So you can get inflamed, you're going to be red. And this is why and you also are going to burn a lot easier. And this is why a lot of people who switched over to doing like ketovore or the carnivore diet, when they switched over and started doing that and they started eating more of the saturated fats, they found out they can stay out in the sun for a lot longer without burning because they aren't as stable. But there's another factor besides just the seed oils, okay, and these refined grains that are tearing up our bodies with all this oxidative stress. There's actually chemicals that are inside some plants. And these chemicals, whether we get it on our skin or whether we eat it, either way, these get into our skin and they can actually make our skin burn a lot more. And it's not a sunburn, it's a natural chemical reaction. And it's the fact is, and I'll talk about it a little bit later also, but the fact is, we aren't actually made to be eating plants. We can, but plants aren't made to be eaten. They put up little protective things to keep animals from eating them. That's how they survive. And some of these chemicals that these plants make are called furanocoumarins. And a furanocoumarin is just a natural plant protection chemical that helps it against things like insects and funguses and other predators eating it. When they put these chemicals on the outside of their plants, when animals eat this, that makes the animals sick. So they don't want to be eating this plant. And that's how the plant survives. But when humans do this, whether they consume it or whether they just handle it with these furanocoumarins, it causes a reaction in your body. It's called a phytophotodermatitis. Phyto meaning plants, comes from plants. Photo meaning comes from sun. And dermatitis means inflammation of the skin. So that's exactly what it is. Phytophotodermatitis means that there's a chemical that plants have that reacts to sun that affects our skin and causes inflammation. And when you have this sunlight and with all those furanocoumarins, what happens is it starts causing irritation on your skin and it starts to cause burn. And this looks like a really bad sunburn. And so a lot of people, when they see that, they think sometimes it's an allergic reaction or sometimes they think they have a really bad sunburn, but really it's an actual chemical reaction. It's something where it actually changes your skin. And that's what it's supposed to do. That's why the plants produce it. But that's why we have to be careful when we're ingesting these. And the deal is you can absorb these toxins, this furanocoumarins, through the skin, or if you eat these plants that contain these, that can also get in your body. And once it's in your skin, it's going to be able to stay around in your body for hours and for days later. And so the more when you eat these or when you touch these, depending on how much you eat and how much you're out in the sun, that's going to determine how sensitive your skin is going to be to this and how much you're going to burn. Now, I just want to say one thing real quick. The reason I'm bringing this up right now instead of like in the middle of the summer is because right now is when people, I don't think they really think about it when they leave. It's going to be cold here during the winter, but then when the summer comes, they're going to be going, when the vacation or something comes, they're going to be going to these really hot places, going to the beaches, all these things. And they're going to be getting exposed to sun that they haven't been used to because it's during the winter. And now if they've been eating these types of plants and they go out in the sun and they haven't been building up a suntan, these are the people who actually get affected by this a lot worse. And so that's why I'm bringing it up now. So what happens is these furanocoumarins that get in your skin and in your body, when the UV light comes in contact with these furanocoumarins, it causes, like I said, a reactive oxygen species, ROSs. And that's what causes this oxidative stress, where it actually harms the cell membranes of your cells. And so that's what you want to do. When you see these things, like I said, a lot of people think that these are second-degree burns. And it looks like one, and the skin can even peel and you get really dark areas. So it's really hard to distinguish this chemical burn from an actual sunburn from just the sun. Now, what are we talking about now? And again, remember, this isn't, when you see this, a lot of people think that they either forgot their sunscreen or they think that maybe their skin is just more sensitive. But all they have to do is look at the types of food that they're eating and see if they have any of these foods and eliminate those if they're going to be out in the sun for very long, or be careful how much you have. And so some of the common foods that have these are like your citrus fruits, like limes. These limes are one of the biggest ones, these citrus fruits, because what they do, and this has been known for people who handle limes a lot, like if you're talking about bartenders that may be squeezing limes in these drinks, or gardeners that actually garden these types of foods, or people who are, like I was saying, they're on vacation, they're out in the sun, and they're drinking a lot of these fruity drinks with things like lime in it. These are the ones that actually they've known that just even a small amount can cause their skin to burn even more. They get blisters and dark streaks. These gardeners and these bartenders, they're used to that. They see that sometimes their skin will start to blister and you have these dark streaks all over your arms and all over your hands. And this is something you can't wash off because this is actually down inside the skin. And you can see this with things like lemons and grapefruits. They also have some similar compounds in them that cause the skin to be more reactive to the ultraviolet light of the sun. Some other ones are like celery, parsley, parsnips, things like that. Those have a very high concentration of these phototoxins. And again, photo meaning from the sun. So it's a phototoxin. So there's a reaction that occurs in your sun when you eat these types of, or in your skin when you eat these types of food. And a lot of these field workers that have been out and they like to say celery, parsley, parsnips, these field workers that are out there, they've been known, this is something that's actually been recorded, that they start getting these really painful streaks all up down their hands and their arms. They have these streaks and they have these rashes all over just because they're handling this. And again, washing the skin doesn't really help it very much, because once these furanocoumarins have absorbed into your skin, or especially if you eat them and they're in your body, then that's down deep, so you can't even wash that off. You just have to wait for them to get out. And like I said, sometimes this could be hours, it could be days before they get out of your system, depending on how much you actually ate. So why does this matter? Okay, the reason this matters is because most people assume that fruits and vegetables are basically beneficial for everything. There's no problem with eating fruits and vegetables, and you're getting some fruit, you get some vitamins and minerals. That is not true. And it's very important for you to know. And I'm not against fruits and vegetables. I'm definitely against man-made food. Stay away from all of that stuff. But as far as fruits and vegetables, just realize there are only 3 different products that are made to actually be consumed by somebody else. And that's honey. Honey is actually made as a nutrition for bees. So it actually is made for the bees to eat. Milk is actually made for infants. So anytime you have milk and you have infants, that is meant to help them heal, grow, thrive, and survive. But the other one is fruits, because fruits, remember, a fruit that's the ovary. So it has all these seeds in it, like an ovary does. And fruit is meant to be eaten, because that's what happens is an animal will eat the fruit and then it stays in the GI tract, and then they go and they poop and they spread these seeds, and that's how that's how that plant continues to grow. The problem is, and one thing, think of a banana. Okay, that's one thing. So think of a banana when it's not ripe, it's real green and tastes real bitter. That's because the seeds inside, they aren't ready to germinate yet. So you wait, and once the fruit ripens, and now those seeds are ready to germinate, now the fruit ripens and it gets that sweet taste because it wants the animals to eat that and to go and poop that out. And think of all this, things that we're seeing right now that people are just, they're not even thinking about it. But remember, a fruit is an ovary. Ovaries, because they had the seeds of the plant to make more seeds. But now they have things like seedless grapes, seedless watermelons. Those aren't even fruits anymore, because remember, a fruit is an ovary. If you take the seeds out, then that's not an ovary anymore. This is genetically modified organisms that are being made, and there's all kinds of things they put in it. There's chemicals they put in it, and that just more chemicals that we put in our bodies also. And then remember, plants aren't that way. Plants don't want to be eaten. So plants have their own protective things all around them, mainly in the shell of the plant. Potatoes are a perfect example. This potato skin, those are extremely toxic. You don't want to eat the potato skin. That's where all the toxins are. And we're one of the only countries that actually eats potato skins. Most people, especially if you go to these tribes that are way out away from everybody, they know not to eat these potato skins because it's making everybody sick. So there's different things that they do to make sure, and they never eat a potato with a skin on it. They always peel it before they do anything. And that's just an example, because again, fruits want to be eaten at a certain time when their seeds are ripe, but other plants don't want to be eaten. That's why there's different things you do, boil them or saute them or whatever, cook them, bake them, whatever you want to do. There's different things that you can do to plants that gets a lot of those toxins out of it, and then you can eat it. But you got to be careful, and that's why you need to be careful eating a lot of raw plants also. And I've done a talk. I did a podcast number 117 on what toxins are in plants. And if you want to hear more about the different toxins that are in plants, and again, I'm not saying don't eat them. You don't have to eat them. You definitely don't have to eat them. But if you want to eat them, just be aware that there are these toxins in them. But in that podcast, I talked mainly about different things. We know that there are some plants that have what's called anti-nutrients, meaning when you eat these, they bind to the nutrients that you have in your gut, and it keeps them from being able to be absorbed. So just by eating the plants, a lot of these anti-nutrients, a lot of the nutrients that you would normally get out of your meal, now you're not getting them. And there's things we've talked about, oxalate crystals and lectins and phytates, and there's just all kinds of things. And a lot of these, we talk more about how it totally tears up our digestive tract, our stomach and our intestines. And that's why we're seeing so many GI, gastrointestinal issues right now: Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, GE reflux. We're seeing all these issues with our gut that we never, ever used to see before. And it's because we keep eating this man-made food that is extremely toxic with all its processed grains, its toxic seed oils, inflammatory seed oils, and all the sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Everything in man-made products is absolutely horrible for our body. And we're seeing that in our GI tracts. But besides that, even just some plants, if you don't fix them right, you're going to be getting these anti-nutrients and these other toxins that can get into your body. And that's even happened with my son. My son was having issues where he was starting to have blood in his urine. He went and got scoped and found out, we saw a little lesion right where, so you've got two kidneys in your body, and then from each kidney, you have what's called a ureter. And the ureter comes from the kidney and it drips into your urinary bladder right in the middle. And then you have a urethra that leads from the bladder to the outside of your body. Right there on the kidneys, right where the ureter dripped into the bladder, there was a streak of blood. There was just a little lesion that was forming. We saw this on the scope. And I told my son, it looks like this is something that you're eating that's causing this, and it's dripping right there. And that's when I found out, and I wasn't aware of this, but he was juicing. He was taking kale and spinach and like a green apple and some other stuff. And he was having this as his little smoothie every single morning because he thought that was healthy. But what he didn't realize was all the oxalate crystals that are in this food, in the kale and also in the spinach. When he was eating all this stuff, all these oxalate crystals were in there, and they were spilling into his kidney and then going into his bladder, and is causing this lesion and causing bleeding. We had him totally stop all those. He's not doing that anymore, and now the bleeding's totally stopped. So this is just another thing. There are things in plants that can hurt you if you don't take care of them, and if you're not aware of them. And these furanocoumarins, that's just another layer. That's another layer of their defense system, but it actually helps us, or it hurts us because of what it does and the way it reacts to the sunlight. So this goes way beyond the gut. This goes to other things that are occurring even with our skin. For the people who already have inflamed bodies because they eat all this ultra processed man-made food, when you eat that stuff, your body is already so inflamed, and you already have a lot of what's called oxidative stress inside your body, and your gut is all inflamed. That's why they're taking all these antacids and all this kind of stuff, because their gut is inflamed. And that's not the way you fix the gut. You fix the gut by getting rid of the stuff that's tearing it up, which is all this man-made food. And also some of these plants. You're going to have to learn, if you're having some of these plants, make sure you know what toxins are in the plants that you tend to like to eat, and see what the best way is to get rid of those toxins, because there's different things you do with the different plants. But so if you're already inflamed, if you already have oxidative stress, if your gut is already compromised because of eating that type of food, now when you eat these plants that have the furanocoumarins, it makes it even stronger. It makes your skin is going to be even more sensitive to the sun. You're going to have more of this inflammation, and your body's not going to be able to handle all this oxidative stress. So when you do this, when you eat when you eat the man-made food that tears your body up, and then you eat these plants that can also start tearing up your body, and you do that in large amounts, all of a sudden what would have been just a little bit of sun exposure, and you might get a light tan, now when you do it, you're going to get out there and you're going to get a burn, or you're going to get a rash, or something where it makes the skin so worse. And the reason why this is so important to know this is because if you're eating these plants that have these chemicals in it that cause you to burn, and you're not aware of it, you're going to think you're more sensitive to the sun. So what you're going to tend to do is go and lather yourself all up with all these sunscreens. But what you don't realize is these sunscreens are also toxic to your body. There are so many chemicals that they're finding in these sunscreens. And when you put sunscreen on, and then you have the heat on there, and you have the blood vessels are dilated, you're going to get even more of these toxic compounds in that ingested or absorbed into your skin. So the best way to take care of sun is be aware of what you're eating, But just get out in the sun when summer comes, get out for just a little bit in the day and then come back in and get the next day a little bit more, a little bit more. Gradually get your skin out in the sun so you can start getting a suntan. And as your skin tans, then that's going to be able to help you with the sunlight also. Also, getting away from these polyunsaturated fats and sticking to saturated fats and animal fats like tallow and lard, all those. When you have saturated fats in your skin cells, that makes your skin cells much more protective against the sun. And again, that's what a lot of people see when they switch over from a normal standard American diet, a SAD diet. When they switch from that over to a whole, healthy, animal-based diet with a few fruits and vegetables mixed in there, these people can find that they can stay out in the sun for a lot longer and they don't burn. And that's just more example of what these chemicals are doing inside our bodies. So be careful when you're eating a large amounts of raw vegetables. When you're doing things like juicing celery or juicing spinach and kale every day and you're consuming this, or if you eat a lot of citrus fruits, just be aware that if you're doing this kind of stuff, it's very possible this could make you burn more out in the sun, and you really don't want to get a burn, because that's where you're going to increase your chance of skin cancer, is when you actually burn. But if you can do it gradually and let your skin build up, then you can do like they've been doing since the beginning of time. They've been out in the sun forever, and we haven't been seeing all these skin cancers until here recently. We didn't used to see skin cancers at all when I was a kid. That wasn't a thing that people talked about, and now it's there all the time. So just be aware, stay away from man-made food. Be aware of these things like the celery and citrus fruits and kale and these other compounds that have things that react to the sun before you go out in it. And then next week, when I talk about this, we'll talk about what you can do about this, how you can avoid this, how you can make your skin more protective against the sun so you don't have to burn. And that's really what we want you to do. That's all I have for this part. Thank you so much for listening to this today. Have a great week. And until next time, stay nourished and stay well. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And remember, if you would like to enroll in our new online Thrive Naturally Transformation course to help you reach your new improved health goal, to reverse type 2 diabetes, feel great, and get off medications, we are here to help. Just go to our website, drstevehewlett.com, and click on the Work With Us tab at the top of the page. We truly are here to help you get off medications and start living the vibrant, pain-free life that you would love to live.